This is my T140E Triumph, and I've had the bike for about a year, and I just thought I'd go around and show some of the modifications, upgrades, and things that I've done to it since I've owned the bike. Right, starting from the very front of the bike, what I've got here is I've put on a Bridgestone. It's a 190/19. It did actually have that size tyre on by Avon, but it was actually wider than the mudguard, even though it was said it was the same tyre. So I've put this on, and it's a BT45, and I find that it helps the handling very well. Other than that, when I first bought the bike, the front wheel was just wobbling a little bit. I think the spokes needed tightening and adjusting, so when I changed the tyre, I took the opportunity to straighten all that out, and it runs, nice and true now. I did that myself. I've done nearly everything myself. The bike was pretty much in as you see it now, but it just needed cleaning up and a good service, and some electrical faults on it sorting out. I've changed the fork seals, cleaned everything up. I've added a GPS speedo, because the one that came with the bike was broken, the speedometer was broken on it. The recording of the mileage was still working, but the actual speedo spring, the mileometer, was broken on that. So so that's pretty much the front end, apart from cleaning it up. That's I've done on it, and the customised dashboard that I've done for it since I've owned it. What it has here is a GPS speedo, which is very accurate, and if you go back past some of these signs which indicate your speed on the side of the road, I can tell by this that it actually is correct. There is a couple of snags with this one. It's not the most expensive things. It's a Chinese. I got it from China, and it was about 50 UK at the time. And although it's very accurate and it does everything it should do, what I do find is that if you go about 60-70 mile an hour on this, the bike vibrates so much that the indicator can lose its calibration until you actually stop the engine and it goes back to zero. You can end up finding that 60 mile an hour was 50 or 70, but that's very rare occasions that's happened. But I just wanted people to be aware if you do get one of these. Other than that, they're very good. And I'll just switch the ignition on. So here you'll see a countdown on this one. You see a countdown. It's picking up the GPS. Doesn't usually take too long. It depends whether by the time you started the bike, it's usually picked up, but this just counts down, and then at some point you get the GPS picking up satellite, although it's calling me a liar at the moment. There you go, it's picked it up. So at the moment my bike's done 19,819. This particular clock, you can actually program it to, and I programmed it to what the old clock, which actually broke, the dial broke on it, and the needle, should I say, the spring in the needle broke. So it done 17,000 miles when I changed it to this clock. So I actually can program this. There's a button on the back of the clock, and you can program it. You could, if you wanted to, I could turn it back to zero if I wanted to. You can program it as many times as you want, but I programmed it to the original mileage, and it's now counting on from that. I've changed my indicators to, there's a button that comes with it, and I've just used the indicators light for the button for the clock. So if I press that, you get the tripometer. If I press and hold it, it'll zero it, but I don't want to do that at the moment. So then press it again, it goes back. That's the only extra functions it does. Now, as for the indicators, it actually has the indicators built into the thing, so there is an indicator, and it does the left and right. And luckily the LEDs aren't pole sensitive on this particular model, because the way Triumph wire the indicators up, the original indicators for the little LED light, in some cases means you need to add some wiring, so I won't go into that now. Right, the I've also added an LED here to tell me that lights are on, so when I turn that, there's an LED comes on. And also when it goes to high beam, I've got the original high beam indicator, but also this clock comes with one as well. So there's that. Then I'll just switch that off and then switch my lights off. Here we've got a clock. It's flashing at the moment because of the way the electricity works with the camera, but it doesn't flash in real life. But basically you've got clock, outside temperature, and your voltage, which at the moment is showing 12 volts. The voltage is there's a setting that you can set it for a minimum voltage to set an alarm so it starts flashing, say for example 11 volts. You can change the 19 degrees C to Fahrenheit by basically pressing this button at the bottom, press and hold it, that's the clock, tap it again, that's there, press and hold, and there you go, it's 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So press and hold again, and then back to C, and you can set the clock in very similarly, and you can set the alarm system for that very similarly. So I found that that's handy, and I'm very pleased with the way that my dashboard. I've updated it, but it's nothing that you can unupdate if you needed to in the future, but it gives a nice update. I've replaced the original exhaust system that came with the bike. I've put non-balanced pipes on. Now these are what they call push-in header pipes, and the problem is once you take the balance part off, you find that if for some reason your header pipes are loose, they can come out. Although it is fastened with a bracket here, they can come a little bit loose and make a pinging noise. So I use some it's quite high temperature, and it's you can buy it from the plumber's merchant, and it's a flue silicon, so for gas heaters, and so it's for the flues that go, so they're used to high temperature. So basically I used some of that, stuck them in, and it seems to have worked ever since. So if I come to take them out, they come out like silicon, and then re-silicon it with this flue silicon and pushed in, and they're solid, and it works really well. So I've changed the rubbers, and I've tuned the carburetors, which are Mark II Amels. Basically they're all standard, except things like I've just changed these just to make it easier if I wanted to turn things without a screwdriver. And I had initially changed the floats for stay up floats, which are a newer thing, but I've actually put the original ones back in after retuning it, and they just work quite well. So they're all pretty much standard, except I did change the actual slides to the modern, newer, heavier ones which you get from Amels, and they seem to work quite well as well, because the older ones, I think they had a slight bit of wear and were letting a bit too much air past them. But other than that, everything's standard, all the jets and everything. As for the cylinder head and everything, I've just cleaned them up, cleaned all the nuts and bolts up, and then just repainted them with aluminium paint. So that's how that looks. Obviously polished things, put pea shooter. That's a recent modification, put pea shooters. The seat is original, as far as I can gather, for this model, except I wasn't really happy. At first I thought the foam itself was starting to collapse a bit, and I wasn't really happy the way it was. It looked a bit too bulbous. So what I've actually done, I've bought some more foam, some heavy duty foam for the front foot, for the base plate, and I think the base plate was an aftermarket one, but I've reformed and shaped the foam to go into the base plate to make a flat level. And then what I did with the original foam is cut about an inch off the original foam, so I've now got a lower lying. It doesn't really show that there's anything been done to it, but it is a slightly lower, and it gives, in my opinion, it gives a little bit better proportion to the bike. Okay, so another modification I've done is the original upside down Girling shock absorbers. had lost the gas, so I'd bought a replacement pair and then I bought another replacement pair, and I couldn't get two the same, and the one was losing oil or something else, and I was never happy with them. But these are actually Enfield, the modern Enfield 500 bullet. Now they're rated the same, well, the same as my Girlings, which were £100 per inch rating. These basically are £101 per inch rating, and they are actually the same size. On this particular bike, there are, I think it's 12.4 inches from centre to centre, and these are. And these are also gas shocks, and they are really good. And I picked them up fairly cheaply, so I was quite pleased with that. Yeah, I've got a pair of those on. I don't think I'll be changing, because if I come, I don't think I'll ever come to sell the bike, but if I do, I've got the old Girlings. I could put them on if someone wants the original ones again, but I'm happy with them. The original rear sprocket was a 47 tooth rear sprocket, and I felt it was a bit revvy and a bit buzzy, so I've tried to change it. I've dropped it down to, I would have liked to have gone to a 42, but they don't seem to do one. But anyway, I've got a 43 rear tooth, and it is better. There's enough power for me. I don't carry two people, so there's enough power. It was a bit over lower geared, is it? Lower geared. So now I've just hired the gear a bit, and so consequently I'm feeling a lot happier. It cruises nicer. It's a slightly lower revs on the cruising. It's nice. I've also fitted an oil filter, you can see through here, and I've fastened it to the original oil tube, oiling frame tube, and I've rerouted the oil. This works on the return. I would like to do a modification to run one on the feed, but at the moment I'm quite happy with that. It just gives you an extra bit of oil, and I use 20W50, and I still change it every 1,000 miles, but it saves me having to go in. I've cleaned that gauze out, the one that comes in with the tube, and I just changed the filter instead of changing the gauze one. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. That's a good upgrade. Right, yeah, little bag. It's actually from the crossbar of a push bike, and it used to have a push bike lock in it, but I just found that quite handy to put little bits and pieces in. Puncture outfit and cloths and stuff, so it's there. You don't have to bother under the tank, under the seat, should I say. Right, so under the seats, I haven't done really much in way of modifications, other than I've still got the twin 6 coil setup. These are later newer ones, and I've got a gel battery. I've put my own strap on here, although they use the same buckles, but I've got actually a fabric strap rather than a rubber one, and I've put one of these fuses as the main fuse. This is a 30 amp fuse, and I think it's far more substantial than the original one. So we've got a live coming off here, routing round, and it goes underneath this bracket that I've created, and then up to the fuse, and then the fuse comes off from the fuse very securely, and I find that gives a lot more reliable running. And I've changed it from the Zener diode. I've no longer used the Zener diode, which was on the back of the airbox here, and I've used a 3-phase regulator rectifier, which I now have fastened underneath in a space behind the left-hand side panel, or the inner side panel. So yeah, so everything looks standard there. And I wasn't sure when I first bought the bike that if this was an original choke, but it is. I've since found out that it is actually an original choke lever, which I've just just basically cleaned up and repainted. But what I have found is the aftermarket choke cables are something to be desired, and they're a bit loose. I bought 2 or 3, and they go down to a junction and then go out to 2 choke plungers. So what I've done here is basically use that, I've tightened basically all the joints up and used that shrink wrap stuff to just give it a little bit more stability, and the same goes for the throttle as well. Of the throttle cable, so I've used that shrink wrap, and it just gives it a little bit more stability, and it's not all rattling, and just gives a better fit. So yeah, as for cables and things like this, I've replaced the rev counter cable and one or two other bits and pieces, but yeah, but that's about it really. One of the modification that I have done is I've actually got rid of the gasket here. I kept having it. It didn't matter what I seemed to do, it seemed to always a drip of leak or something. So I decided to take the gasket off completely, and I've used Harlemar from this point here right over the top to about this point here, and then I've used RTV silicone round the bottom, which is where the oil sits, which obviously it leaks, and things where they adjust, where you can get to the adjusters here for the camshaft adjuster, tensioner. I've put RTV in there, and so what I can do now is I can take the drain plug out on mine, I can put a longer bolt into there, into the bottom here, and I can use that to pull it and also prise it off with the Harlemar, which isn't stuck, and that seems to work well. So if I never need to get in there, but it doesn't leak oil anymore, so in fact the bike doesn't leak it anywhere, so I'm really pleased I've got rid of all the oil leaks. That's the sort of review of what I've done to my bike since I've owned it, and I've had it with just over a year now, and I would say the most intensive time for me was the first 3 months of owning the bike, because it did have some electrical issues, basically bad joints and wires, and the wrong coils fitted, and various other things I had to go through the bike. But it's running and it's very reliable, and I just absolutely love it, love riding it, and just hope the weather gets a bit better so I can get a bit more riding this weekend. Thank you very much.